Hello everyone, welcome back to the Manager, the Premier League journey. We're on to week 4 now, which is Leeds United away. My name's Simon, I'm one of the coaches here at positionspecific.com and got Mikey alongside me today. Everything okay?
Everything's good, mate. I hope everyone else is well and staying safe and hopefully getting back to normal.
For a good start. We've had two wins and a draw, so hoping to keep the unbeaten streak going, but tough game against Leeds as always, isn't it, Mikey?
Yeah, it's a tough one, mate. Everyone, I think it's in the Leeds have been in the spotlight under this year, and with Marcelo coming up in the Premier League, and everyone obviously had questions around if they could carry on doing what they did in the Championship, but they've proven that, haven't they? So they've been great to watch, and I think like for us, it's good to see how we're going to adapt against them. So good week, mate. I think overall.
Yeah, definitely. Because obviously you keep hearing over and over again, don't you, that Leeds United are unique, which I totally agree with. But I just think they're unique in so many different ways. It's just, it's not just, I don't like, because obviously they get kind of like all the adulation for kind of how hard they work and how far they run and the energy and all that. But I think that's just one unique part of a big picture, really. And hopefully we'll delve into a little bit of that today. Okay, guys. So just looking into the opposition analysis of Leeds United, we've watched Leeds United quite a lot this year, so we know quite a bit of what Leeds do. But just really delving into and looking a bit deeper into their game against Sheffield United, I think we'll get onto kind of how Leeds operate against Sheffield United in a bit. But looking at the starting team, so there's no real shakes in Leeds' team. They always set up in a 4-3-3, and like I mentioned, they do some different things in terms of system-wise that we'll get into a bit later on. But no real kind of shake-ups in there. Substitutes were quite like for like as well. So obviously, like they brought Rodrigo on in the second half for Patrick Bamford, which is a normal change, like for like 2 number 9s. Obviously brought Klitsch on in midfield for Tyler Roberts late on in the game as well, which is a very similar change. And then the only change that might look a little bit different for Leeds was when they brought Robin Koch on for Stuart Dallas late in the game, which was probably just to see the game out. And obviously Koch's a centre half who can do a little bit of defensive midfield. So likelihood is they went to a bit of a 2 and a 1 in their midfield shape later on in the game just to see it out. Anything different you'd see, Mackie, from that?
No, I think don't get caught up too much on the 4-3-3. I think anybody who knows Marcelo and been watching Leeds, they're obviously really adaptable. And obviously with Sheffield United playing their traditional 3-5-2, you've probably got to feel that you know what Leeds are going to be doing. So, they were flipping between a back 3 and a back 4. But like Si said, we'll go into a little bit more detail around that as we go through the presentation.
Okay, so looking at our starting team in comparison to what Leeds United set up and how we think Leeds United will play as well. So, changing goalkeeper again. Mikey's playing mind games with Kasper Schmeichel and Hugo Lloris. So Kasper's back in. Any reason for this, Mikey, or have you just like to keep mixing it?
No, I just like to mix it, mate. Keep them on the toes. But I also think as well, when looking, because you've got me working on like the in possession stuff, I think Kasper will probably benefit or help us a little bit more of how we want to build. But listen, they're both having a decent run this year, so I'm happy with any of them.
Okay. So what we decided to do is we're going to go for a back 3, which we've done in a couple of games previously, but I think we'll get into exactly why we're doing this a bit later in the presentation. But so we've got Ruben Dias left to the back 3. We've got Eric Dyer in the centre, and we've got Conor Cody on the right. In defensive midfield, okay, N'Golo Kante, and then we've got Dan James on the left-hand side as a wing-back, and we've got Aaron Bissaka on the right-hand side as a wing-back. And we'll as the rest of the team comes up, we'll get into a little bit of the balance of it as well. Lingard's finally got himself in. He's done enough now after his 10 games. I think he's played for West Ham now, where he's been unbelievable. So, unfortunately, Gundogan's made way for him. Loftus-Cheek keeps his place in the midfield as well. And then, as usual, we've got Mo Salah up front with Danny Ings as well. So, just a quick one on the balance of the team, really. So, I think whenever me and Mikey play kind of a 3-5-2 or a variation of 3-5-2. So we would call this a 1-3-3-2-2. Because it's the more attacking kind of midfield with the 1 and a 2. But when we think about balance within this as well, we always have, like in our wing back roles, we always have like a full back playing one of the wing back roles, and we always have a winger. And I think that just makes you a little bit more adaptable in terms of being able to shift quickly to a back 4 if you need to go into a 4-3-3 or into other shapes as well. So we always like to have that balance. Same in the back 3 as well. So we've kind of, usually we'd go with a full back and 2 centre halves in a back 3, but we've gone for a back 3 of kind of 2 centre halves and a bit of a centre half slash DM as well. And as I said, it just makes you more adaptable and able to change shapes without having to make substitutions, especially early in the game. Would you agree with that, Mikey?
Agree with everything that you've said there. I think obviously when you're putting a team together like this, there is obviously performance problems, and I think we've got a slide later on where we go through that a little bit. But I think for us, like, we're always thinking like in possession first. So like, how can we hurt the opposition? And then we start to then look at like what the transition will look like, and then the defensive organisation. But like usually when we're first picking this squad and we're talking about it, it's like, how can we hurt them in possession? And I think if you're looking at this team here, when we win the ball, so we're looking at attacking transition, we've got plenty of pace to go and hurt Leeds. And then if we're in the attacking organisation, so the counter-attack isn't on, we've got a really good structure to build. And then obviously going to the next stage, when we lose the ball, you've actually got a good 4 behind the ball. So let's say 2 wing backs have pushed right on. You've got Kante in front of the back 3. And I think, with them 5 players in them central areas, we should be really solid. So like I say, we'll always work the attacking organisation first when we're selecting, and then we'll start to run through the process of the other 3 moments in the game. Right, just looking at the opposition's defensive organisation. So we're looking at how Leeds are set up in a high press. So this works well for us because obviously we wanted to set up in a back 3 anyway, because we felt that we could hurt Leeds more in that system and try to draw 2 out before we look to go forward. So looking at Sheffield United sort of worked well because obviously we've then playing a back 3 as throughout the most of the season anyway. So just looking at Leeds here, what they'll do is they will flip systems straight away. So if a team's playing with a back 3, they'll instantly go and press with 2. So they're always a -1, but what they're doing is you're still trying to keep applying high pressure. So looking at the scenario here against Sheffield United, so you effectively got a 4-B-2, but the 2 strikers will be working on how to divide the back 3. And then if it's a bad pass, then they'll jump press the keeper. So just to give me an example here, they'll divide the 3 centre-backs, force the ball maybe one way, and then when the ball goes to one side, they'll just work across the pitch and then leave the furthest centre-back. And if you get a chance to watch Leeds against back 3, you'll see this quite a lot. Now, it might vary on who jumps with Bamford and who supports him in there, but this is what they tend to go with. Obviously, sometimes it's been working quite a lot this year with Harrison or Rafinha. And then if they've got an overloading midfield, they'll jump from the midfield as well. So that's how the front 2 will occupy the back 3 and the keeper. Everything else, and I don't think this is any surprise to anybody, it's a man-to-man system with a +1. So in midfield, you've got your matchup of a 3v3. You've got your 2 wide areas, which are 1v1s. And if you watch it this year, Leeds will tend to play with maybe an Alioski and then Rafinha on the other side. So similar to what we like to do, you'll have one who's more defensive-minded in Alioski and then one attacking player, but making sure that they both stick to the same responsibilities. You've then got your back 3 to deal with the 2 forwards. So similar sort of concepts to what we're going after in this game. So it'd be really interesting to see if we could actually play it. So that's how Leeds will operate in the opposition's defensive organisation. Si, anything?
No, I was just, I was just thinking back to, there's been a couple of games this year where other teams have kind of not exactly matched Leeds' like kind of systems of play or anything like that, but they've done a little bit of man-to-man against them. I think back to Everton at Ellen Road where Everton nicked the game and they did a little bit of marking zone and marking man-to-man, and that was really effective against Leeds. And I think back to Southampton as well at Ellen Road as well, which was another tough game for Leeds. where they did a little bit of both as well. And I think there's been, I think I sometimes think like more teams would have more success if they did a little bit of like man-to-man what Leeds do against Leeds. They'd be more successful, but it'll be interesting to see like how that adapts next season, and when teams have had a better look at Leeds.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I just think the thing that that shocks the opposition is the intensity from Leeds United. So the one thing that obviously Marcelo likes to do is just get instant pressure on the ball all the time, and it's called like obviously finding a mark and changing a mark, but because of the system change, they can apply quick pressure like this. So if you're looking at the back three, they'll instantly change to the two, and they've always got that pressure. And the team are so well drilled on where to force it, and finding a mark and changing a mark, and then setting traps. So I think that's what shocks teams say, with saying, yeah, we'll match Leeds here, but Leeds then they'll change and then just keep getting instant pressure on them. And there's like 3 or 4 games that we could use as examples this year.
Yeah, and I think there's the other thing to mention as well is like that there's obviously lots of ways that teams can press, and we'll get onto a little bit of this when we get in there, but I think there's lots of different ways they can do it as well. But Leeds are always kind of like that. The first line they're always a -1, second line they're man-to-man, they're tight, and then third line they've just got that extra just in case anything happens. There's lots of other ways that they could press, but I think for a team like Leeds, this is really effective. And it's just been brave. It's been brave in your own possession, in terms of building, to play past that. Because when you've got an overload, there's always a way out, and you've just got to be really brave. But like when you watch some of the Premier League games, even some of the top teams in the Premier League sometimes aren't as brave when playing against really high pressure. So it's always an interesting one.
Yeah, I think as you were speaking there, what sprung to mind was Fulham last year. I don't know if you remember, I did a bit of a presentation on them at the start of the season. I said they were going to be good in the Championship. And it was interesting when Leeds played Fulham, and if you do get opportunities to go back and watch it, like they brought that first line of press really well, didn't they? With the link passing to the free player. The issue was for Fulham is when the ball was turned over, we were so much quicker in the transition that we punished them, which then got to a point where it sort of knocked the confidence, and then we got hold of the game. But if you look back at the games against Fulham last year, there were spells where they took that first line press out really well, and even the second line. So if you do get a chance, go and have a look. It was just that Leeds was a lot better in the transition. So what are we going to do then against Leeds United? So as you can see in the yellow, we've got our team set up. And hopefully this will just explain a little bit more around the personnel. So we're gonna set up in what we call the 3-3-2-2, which you can see, which is very similar to how Sheffield United operate, apart from the dynamics in midfield. So what we're going to do is we're going to work through 3 patterns of how to beat that first line press. So the reason for us to go to a back 3 is because we want Leeds to press with 2. And we want them to try to change the mark from midfield or jump press from there. So we might effectively take 3 players out the game with certain passing combinations. Now, once we've brought that line, then we'll look to penetrate the defensive line. And I think if you watch the first half of Liverpool last week, when Liverpool found that free player, and when they went forward quickly and dragging players all over, it was quite difficult for Leeds. Now, Leeds got used to that and obviously changed the tactics slightly, which was good. But we want to cause a similar sort of problem and cause chaos once we found that free player. Also thinking that when we lose the ball, we've got the 3 in the 3 central channels to the goal. So worst case scenario in the transition, we're forcing Leeds down the sides. And then obviously when you've got Kante, who's in front of them, then you've got probably one of the best defensive midfielders in the world who can also make that a 4 and can cover ground so quickly. So I'm just going to give you one example for now. So we'll shift the ball one way, knowing that Leeds are going to press like this. Okay, and this is a 3-pass combination. So the first pass has gone into the centre-back. It goes back to the keeper, and these passes have to be clean. And then what we're looking to do is exploit the opposite side centre-back, all right, within them 3 passes. Now, the detail behind this is the pass into Connor Cody, and then Cody dropping the ball back to Casper to take on the back foot. And then this is the vital pass. The third pass is to go beyond the second man who's pressing to take them out. Now, the movements for Kante is just to work the opposite side to the ball. So as Casper plays that ball into Diaz, Kante will drop onto the other side to try and create space for Diaz. Now, there's two things that will happen there. Roberts will jump and press, okay, which means then we've got a spare man in midfield, or he'll go with Kante, which Diaz can then step in and then go and fix their midfield line. And then as we go through the presentation, I'll show you some of the patterns of play that we want to use on how we want to exploit their defensive line. So that's just showing you one pattern. The other two patterns will be in my session that I'll talk through later on. But hopefully that just gives you an idea. So 3 patterns to take out the first line, and then we'll be looking to break their defensive line.
Okay, so looking at Leeds' attacking organisation against Sheffield United, and this is how Leeds built their attack against Sheffield United. So, as you can see, Leeds are a little bit awkward when they're building, and they can build as a back 3, but they also go to a back 4. So Sheffield United, all they did was they set up with the 2 up front. They had the 3 in midfield, and then they went to a little bit of a back 5 at the back to deal with the 3. Yeah, it was it's always tough playing against this sort of thing. And Sheffield United really did find it difficult, but hopefully we've got a little bit of a solution to making it harder for Leeds to build up. So this is what we're going to do in terms of our defending or our defensive organisation against how Leeds build. So we'll look for our 2 forwards, so Danny Ings and Mo Salah, to really divide that back 3. So if the Leeds back 3 is Luke Ayling, Llorente and Liam Cooper, we'll really look to get in between, halfway in between those 3 players. So it's like it's an equal distance to kind of move to the nearest one who gets in possession of the ball. We'll push Aaron Wan-Bissaka on to deal with Alioski if he drops into a position like a left back position to get on the ball. Obviously, man for man in midfield, and then we'll kind of go between a little bit of a back 3 and a back 4 on our defensive line, just depending on what Rafinha and Harrison do. So, and we've got question marks there because they could be a little bit of a performance problem in terms of Dan James, who obviously is not a left back. He's a winger, picking up Rafinha in those if he goes in those high positions, and same on the other side where Connor Cody is obviously a defender. But he's not too used to going and defending in wide areas as a fullback. So against depending on what Harrison does. So it's, as I said, Leeds are very awkward. They can adjust and do things like this. So we could come across a couple of performance problems, but we feel as though this is the best way that we can deal with them. And obviously we'll still have that +1 on our defensive line. Anything to add to that, Mikey?
Yeah, I think like you say there, when we're selecting the squad, and I think I mentioned it earlier, we're really thinking about the in possession stuff. So this is something where when we have like a team meeting or an individual meeting, that we're saying to James, look, this is what we think you're going to offer in possession, but then these are the things that you need to do out of possession, because we know what Rafinha is about. We know he can match him pace for pace. It's just obviously he's going to take him into areas that he's not familiar with. Again, taking away that pressure that if he does make a mistake in them areas, we're not going to have a go at him. What we're trying to do is just build his confidence up. And then the other side is obviously Cody on the other side, playing in a right back position against someone who's quick. What we'd say is one of the solutions that we spoke about, Si, was maybe just swapping Dyer over, didn't we? Yeah. And if not, we've got good options on the bench. But for us, it's important to always look at performance problems and things that you might need to tweak throughout the game, because when a team gets on top of you, especially at a high level, and from our experiences, you get punished. So if you don't plan for these sort of scenarios and where they could hurt you, you're on the sideline trying to work it out, and before you know it, you're a goal down. And listen, we've been on the sideline side before, haven't we? Where we've been talking and trying to solve some problems, and before you know it, we're a goal down, and that changes the whole mindset and everything of your team talk. So it's just a little bit of advice and some stuff that we like to work through as well.
Yeah, one other point on that as well is like I think I mentioned really early in the team selection as well, is like that sometimes if you're selecting a back 3, you might go with 2 centre backs and a full back in your back 3. So then you do have that kind of opportunity for if there's a problem like this, then you know one of your back 3s is a full back, so they're used to going and dealing with things in wide areas. But as I said, like we're thinking mainly in possession how we can hurt Leeds as well. So that's why we've selected what we have. But I see like there's when you're looking into these sort of systems things, it's really interesting, and that's why like Leeds are a real focal point for us when we're looking at systems and stuff. So it helps with what Marcelo does. It goes into a lot of our thinking as well.
Yeah, it'd be good to see what people think here on how you would adapt, and if you would have different personnel. Like you might be more of a defensive coach, so just leave your comments in there below on what personnel you would go with and how you would deal with Leeds. What if you were 1-0 down? How would you change this? Now, one thing that sort of springs to mind for us is we could push James right onto Ayling, Danny Ings onto Llorente, and then Salah could deal with Cooper, and we'll just go man for man on the defensive line to force them long. That's another way, but have a little think yourself on how you would adapt personnel and a system of play against this, and leave your comments in below, because there has been some really good comments, and there's obviously some good coaches out there and who's been watching our channel, so get them in there. So just looking at the weekly schedule, I say it every week, there's not much difference on a weekly basis to this. We have decided that we'll do the next game as a 1-week game, and then we'll start to do 2-game weeks moving forward. We're just having a little scan over at this. We're keeping with the same principles. So on a Monday, we're going to look at some in possession stuff. We're going to look at some more unit work, which I'll run through. And that's like the how to build. And then we're going to look at some movements beyond. We're then moving to some more defensive work, where again, we're sort of focusing on the units this week, just to give you a bit of a different idea of how we can work on week to week, because when you're in the thick of it, you'll have players who have got knocks, people who are fatigued, and what happens then is your sort of squad gets a little bit smaller. So you also need to be ready to work within units or individuals. So we just wanted to give you a bit of a different idea this week rather than working in 11v11s. Moving on to the Wednesday, like every week, we'll try to fit in 11v11, mixed 23s, first team, 18s, whatever, work through the team principles. And then obviously we're going to look at working in a 1-3-3-2-2 system. So what it looks like in the 4 moments. So when we're attacking organisation, and obviously right through to the defensive transition, defensive organisation, and then obviously the attacking transition. And then Thursday stays the same, position specific. And then Friday, we'll just look at the meetings. I think I mentioned it earlier about maybe having a chat with key players like James. If we're going to start him in there, this is what we want in possession, but these are the things that we expect out of possession, and then taking away that pressure. Afternoon, then look to travel to Leeds, recovering on an evening in the hotel, and then obviously onto match day on Saturday, and then travelling back, and then having Sunday off, especially if we win side.
Oh, 100%, yeah. I think one of the things just to mention on here as well is because obviously at the moment this isn't changing too much from week to week, but a bit of advice from us to coaches out there, and listen, there's a lot of top coaches out there that watch our stuff, and you'll know about this anyway. But like we mentioned really early on in the journey, is just the information on the bottom about start thinking about pitch sizes and start thinking about how long and your minutes of your training, or even if you're doing like a practice, like it's 20 minutes, like start thinking about how you break that up so that you might work for 4 minutes and have a minute off, or you might work for 3 minutes and have a minute off. So and again, like I mentioned before, pitch size is really important, because like I've worked at organizations in the past where, and I'm sure lots of you guys are the same, where like you're on half a pitch or a third of a pitch, which is it's great because you're training and you're on those areas, but you've got to think about the benefits of for the players, and they've like players need to be working over relevant distances to what they're going to play in a game at some point during your prep for a game. And I know it's difficult, and I know you can't do it a lot, but for me at least, start thinking about it, because when you get on kind of like later courses, A license, pro license, like you really have to start thinking about this stuff in detail. So it's worth starting to have a little plan to get putting a little plan together like we have here for your own situation.
Yeah, and I think just a bit of advice on this: if you're ever in a position where you can get GPS onto your sessions and try to log them and put them in a bit of a library to keep away for a rainy day, I would advise you to do it as soon as possible if you can. Now, I know not everybody's in that position, but I wish that when the GPS came out, I wish that I'd done more work around that, so that, you know, when it comes to an opportunity where I can use it, especially in a full-time environment, I've got it there already. So, and I'm still going through it now, where I'm still adding the GPS stuff to all my sessions and how it looks, and it really is important moving forward, like Si said.
Yeah, and I think as well, if you guys are already doing this, if you're in a full-time environment and you're prepping a week like this, then like send us your weekly schedule and let us know what you're doing. Like, let us know if you agree with the kind of spaces that we'd be using through the week towards a game on a Saturday, and the timings and stuff, and let us know how you break your week up into how you work with your team, how you work with your units, how you work with the individuals, because we'll be interesting to see.
So just looking at the attacking organisation, we're going to do some connection work on building the attack. What we've done is we've gone to obviously a back three this week. So we've just tweaked the session, and we've actually put this together this week, and we'll put this in our library because we'll use this one day. But these are some of the patterns that we work on against two forwards and how to get out. So this practice will just run through 3 patterns. Before we go through that, just look at the physical load to the left. So it's a match day +2, obviously pitch recovery. So again, you might not have a full squad, you might have a small group. So it's ideal for something like this. We want to try and keep it a medium practice load. Looking at the ratios there, so you're working for about 3 minutes to 1 minute rest. And again, as a coach, you know, don't move away from your instincts and what you're seeing. If you think the players are a little bit tired, drop that workload to 2 minutes. You know, don't be scared to work off the eye. It's going to be a large area because we're going to work on specific passing patterns that we feel that will hurt Leeds United. And obviously to the right hand side, you've got the practice detail. I won't run through that. You can pause the video and read through that. And then you've got your individual outcomes. So you've got the performance wheels here. So scan, move, receive, release. And if you're not familiar with the performance wheels, make sure you check out the Coaching Journey 1 and the first video where we actually run through that. So the session's really, really simple. It's unopposed practice. All we're going to do is work through 3 patterns. So the first one, which I showed you in the analysis part, the keeper's going to play the ball into left or right, so the 5 or 6, so the side centre backs. The ball comes in and we move it out quickly. What we're then looking for here is that driven pass beyond the mannequin for them to step in. And then we're looking at these coming round and then securing the back. What we would do is, if we had an extra player, we might work with our 4, working his positionings on the opposite side and then tightening up. When we get into this area, what we're looking for the player to do then is hit one of the 3 goals. I've only just used this as an example for the first 2 because it might be the first couple of goals and I don't want them playing a 60, 70 yard ball and then pulling the hamstring. So for me, maybe just work the first 2 goals to start with. But these are the patterns that we're going to work on. Then recover back in, so it'll be like slow jog back in, and then we'll work the same pattern and work the opposite way. So it's a little bounce. Now what happens on this one here is I get the centre back to travel with the ball slightly. So just vary it sometimes. So bounce it back first time, and then other times travel with it. Now what that'll do is that'll get the players into good habits of trying to draw in an attacker before playing the ball back, but also into habits where if they press instantly, they bounce it back first time. So they're working the both techniques. And then the central centre-back is just trying to occupy the space in between. So split the 2 mannequins. The ball goes back and then out the other side. And then you're looking at the same thing again, just trying to hit one of the goals. The second pattern is going to go into the central centre-back, and then we're going to release the ball back, and it's got to be clean. Now, again, if you're in a game, don't lose the fact that they can turn and take the ball out. So it might be something that you wanted to add. So if you've got shadow attackers to go and press, you could use that. But for this example, we're going to bounce the ball back and then we're going to play one side. Now, this is now to go over them. So what you're hoping to do by the 3 passes, is to draw the attackers to one side to then go over the top, which you can see here. And then take the space and then look to play in. So the same scenario again, little bounce in, into the opposite side, and then looking to switch. So 4 pass combination play. to get out. Now, again, if you get opportunities to watch games, have a look for these little combos. We use them quite a bit, and it helps us out. So looking at a third pattern, we start the same. So the ball goes into the central centre-back who releases the ball back. And then we're just going to do something totally different to try throw the opposition. And then these are going to rotate. So one out, one in. Now remember, they're pressing with the two here, so he's going to have to go to one or the other. And usually when you've exchanged two passes, the attacker will do three things. He'll either follow the 6, the 4, or press the keeper. So there should always be an option to get out unless they start to jump press from somewhere else. And then you can play through. But what we do with the keeper on this one, we give them an option on where they want to play. Back in, bounce the ball back, rotation. Now, if the keeper plays here, then you've got that option again to switch to play, which is in the second pattern, or playing to the central centre-back to come out. And they're just the 3 patterns that would work through for around 15, 20 minutes. And again, if you've got more bodies, you could maybe put some shadow defenders in, you could put your number 4 in. But real simple practice on trying to break that first line press and then play the longer ball to break the opposition's defensive line. Anything on that side?
Just one little point of detail that Mikey mentioned earlier. I think it might have been in pattern number 2 about we call it fixing a player. And obviously your players have got to be really comfortable at this. But talking about like when you're in possession, like having a little dribble towards a pressing player or a player that's kind of marking the space, because they have to then make a decision whether they come to you or they stay where they are. And if you watch City are absolutely like brilliant at it. Like John Stone's like superb. Like he'll receive the ball to the left or the right of the strike of the number 9, and he'll drive straight at him and then take him out of the game by a pass to Diaz or to Laporte. And it's the same when players kind of get the free space. So if the 9's on one side or 9 and 10 are on one side, and like Mikey mentioned about driving into the space, then that then gives your players in your midfield and your players, in Leeds' case, like your wing backs, a real issue because they've got to decide whether they come and put pressure on the ball or they stay with their man. And then, players will usually make that decision, and that'll open up a free player. So, really, really important. You think about these things and look. I said, like, watch Man City and Leeds are really good at it. So, have a little watch of them about fixing players.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, that, and it sort of reminded me of a conversation. One of the coaches that I worked with, we were working with a player who actually plays in the Premiership at the moment as a centre back who came from Ajax. And I remember one of the sessions the coach was doing, he didn't put as much detail on as a player knew, which was really interesting because when they went through the session after, he talked about all the little things like about fixing a player, the disguised passes, the driven pass, which was unbelievable, really, because one of the coaches that I'm talking about was one of the best coaches I've seen. But it came from a player who's come from a really, really good background of Ajax. And I think like what that did is that opened our eyes to whenever you're doing like an unopposed practice, really go after that detail, and you'll only get that detail by watching games and the top players. But like if you see something within a game, make a note of it and then drop it into one of your sessions, especially in this unopposed stuff. Right, just looking at the attacking organisation again, so the second practice. Now, what we've got here is you can run these sessions side by side. If you've got enough staff, you could get some of your staff to work with what we call the hat, so the higher players, the attacking players, and then you could get one member of staff to work on the session that we've just gone through. But in this practice here, again, you can use as many players as you want, and you can have people on the outside, depending on your workload. You can take players out and just work specific movements if you want. So you might take your full-backs out or your wing-backs out in this scenario. You can maybe take an 8 out and just keep adapting your session. But for us, what we're going to work on now is the movement up the pitch once we've found that free play and broke the line. So I've positioned the blue players in the positions of where our centre-backs would tend to break the line. So hopefully that makes sense. Then we've put the 3 mannequins together, knowing that that Leeds would go to a back 3 if we were playing with a 2. And obviously this is where it comes in from our personnel. So when we're talking about Gundogan being dropped for Loftus-Cheek, Gundogan's play is all around like linking the play up, arriving into the box late, that's the type of player he is, where we wanted pace and power, with Lingard and Loftus to really get beyond their defensive line once we found the free player. So that was the thinking behind some of our personnel in this session here. So again, you've got the physical outcome here, you've got the practice detail to the right, and then you've got the individual outcomes that we're going after. So really simple. So just to show you here, the first pattern that we're going after is the left centre-back steps in, and then what you get your two forwards to do is slide in between and then outside. So the opposite side to the ball. And then your midfielder goes beyond, your wing-back goes beyond, and then you attack the box. Really, really simple pattern. And then they can finish it off any way they want. Same thing on the opposite side. So watch the scenario here. So again, steps in with the ball because that's the trigger for the movement. Slide on the inside, slide on the outside. And then all you're looking at then is your 10 to go and break the line, the wing back break the line. So thinking back of that personnel, when you've got James on one side, Wan-Bissaka on the other, you've got Loftus-Cheek and Lingard. Now, if they make them runs and we get the pass right, you're leaving good players in 1v1 areas. So, for instance, Lingard in a 1v1 duel in around the box, we're happy with that. And then you've got two good finishers who are then going to exploit the box or the space in the box. So the same pattern there, over the top, and then you're looking to finish. A little condition that you can put in there is they've got to score within 2 passes or 3 seconds. So pattern 2, it's just on the move here, as you can see. So the central centre-back steps in, and then these two can work any way you want them to work, as long as they work together. So if he comes on the inside, he goes on the outside. And that's so that the defenders lose sight of you, but you're trying to occupy all 3 together and you're not leaving in one space. If they both go on the outside, that doesn't affect this central centre-back. He can then just move into the box unaffected. So what we're saying is can we affect all 3? So one comes on the inside, one goes on the outside. This one here, the midfielders can show, and then we go diagonally into the corner. So hopefully it's someone like a James up against a Rafinha. You're expecting him to maybe switch off once, and then you're in. And then we attack the box again. And then whatever combinations that you wanna play. Same thing, opposite side, steps in, work the 3, and then you're looking to cross or pull it back and then finish. And then just looking at this pattern 3 here, so I'll pause it there. So again, he steps in, and the forward on the opposite side comes feet. Now, if you're looking at Leeds United's system, let's say that's Ayling with Danny Ings, there's a high percentage that Ayling's going to go with him. So then that leaves space for one of our midfielders. So in this scenario, it'll be Lingard, maybe playing up against Dallas. It leaves a foot race to go into the space. If he overhits it, then you've got Dan James coming in with Rafinha. But what it's doing is it's causing a problem for Leeds United. If they hold, so if he holds his position, then Danny Ings should be in space to get on the turn, which you can see here. But our game plan would be to really exploit the spaces that are left from the man-to-man system. So again, forwards dropped in, and then you're looking to break the line and finish anywhere. So looking at the 2 sessions there, obviously you've got the build-up to try break the lines, which is these 3 players here, and then you've got 3 specific movements that we're going after. So hopefully that makes sense on how we want to hurt Leeds. In the 11v11 game on the Wednesday, then we'll obviously look to see if we can exploit this, and we'd film it. And then you might touch on the little stuff around when the ball turns over, what does it look like, and that's where your forward come into play. Anything, Si?
Just one on, you pretty much mentioned it at the end there about your security behind the ball, but I mean, how the video's left here is perfect, because when we attack the box, we're always looking to attack the box with two to 3 players, but there's always 2 players. Like you can see the 8 and the 9 here. There's always the 2 players kind of on the edge of the box. And yes, one of the reasons is they're there for the pullback. They might be free, but the other reason is that if the ball gets cleared out in kind of phase 1, if you want to call it, then they're there for phase 2 to challenge and compete for stop the obviously the transition. And in that scenario as well, you can probably keep the pressure on and stay high in Leeds' half if them two do the job properly. And then obviously behind that, you're looking at security behind the ball, which Mikey touched on then. But really important that you kind of get that set up whenever you're in a crossing and finishing kind of scenario.
Yeah, I think if we were doing this session on a Thursday, let's say, Si, or even if we didn't do 11v11 on a Wednesday, we'd have mats set up, wouldn't we? So once they break the line, everybody's got to be fixed onto a mat. So it might be that these three centre-backs are 30 yards up the pitch. And then on the whistle, we'd all retreat, wouldn't we? So it'd be more of a physical workout. So there is ways that you can do that. But obviously for this session, you're just purely looking at the movements and then saving the legs. But there's loads of ways to adapt it to get what Simon was talking about.
Okay, so looking at our defensive organisation, what we do is we would start off with a bit of a position-specific practice, just working the front two around dealing with the back three. So obviously, usual setup on the left-hand side of the page. It was the physical outcome. So this is obviously match day +3 now. So we're on to the Tuesday. Looking at 20-minute practice. This will be a bit of a medium to quite high load because it's obviously hard work playing against an overload for a couple of players. So it'll be quite difficult for them, and that's why the practice is quite short. So we'd work for 4 minutes, and then we'd recover for 1, and we'd probably do that 3 to 4 times. As I said, it's quite hard. You'd probably do it 3, 4 if the players are feeling okay. And as I said, the area is quite large as well, and it's obviously a 2 versus 3 and 4 with the keeper. So really simple practice. Team outcomes again, very individual. So scan, move, dictate, and defend. And then obviously the practice details there for you to have a pause and have a read through. But I'll explain the session as we go on. So as I said, setup, obviously using an area the width of the 18-yard box. It's probably a little bit bigger than the two 18-yard boxes in terms of length, and then you've got 2 mini goals on the last line with a coach ready with the ball. So the idea is that there's 3 parts to this. So part 1 is that the Reds will start the practice from the central centre back. They'll shift it one side. The Whites will defend passively, so they'll shift it one side. They'll shift it back to the middle, and then they'll shift it across. And all we're looking for the Whites to do is just shift across themselves, like they would do in the game. And then we're just going to play a through ball, and then it's up to the Whites to recover and try and stop the Reds scoring in the mini goals. So part 2 will be the coach. He'd fire a ball straight into the Whites, so then the Whites get the opportunity to attack 2v3. Just in case they win it in these scenarios and they get a chance to get an on goal. And then part 3 is obviously pressing against the red team, who are going to build in a similar kind of fashion to Leeds. And hopefully we've set them up in a way here, but then we'd eventually move on to how Leeds set up in terms of building as well. And part 3 would just be working together and pressing, very similar to what Leeds do. But again, it's that high intensity. Is there the bad pass to the goalkeeper? Can you jump onto the goalkeeper? Looking for the players to show outside as much as possible, and that's when you can get into your fine detail of how you press with those two. But it's really simple practice, but it will be quite hard work for the Whites. Even though the first bit is passive, it'll still be quite hard work, especially that recovery run. Anything to add to that, Mikey?
Yeah, I think just looking back at the physical stuff that you're on about, I think in an ideal world, you'd have maybe 4 players who potentially could be playing as the 2 forwards in the game. And you might have maybe 4 or 5 players who potentially could be playing in the back 3. So you could just have them spare on the sideline and just change them over after every game. So once they've done all 3 parts, just change them over. So again, that's another way for you as a coach to really have a look at the detail and see who gets it right. And give you an example, one of the forwards might be doing better than, let's say, Mo Salah, so you might change him. So it can also give you an opportunity to look at who's actual better at doing this and taking on the information. So that was just a little bit on the physical load side, that was all.
Yeah. So moving into our second practice in terms of defensive organisation, all we'd do in this practice is we'd play an 8v7 game. So obviously the Reds will be the team of 8, including the goalkeeper, and the Whites will be the team of 7. Obviously, you're always pressing or putting pressure on the opposition in their half underloaded. So again, physical outcome, 25-minute session, medium kind of load. Work ratio again will be 4 minutes on, 1 minute to rest. And obviously it's half a pitch, so it's quite a large area. And there's 4 goals for the as a target for the red team on the halfway line. So this session again is what we're just going to do is we're just going to work through. So slight change in the outcomes this time. So the team outcomes are obviously our defensive organisation outcomes, which is desire, deny, deflect, and defend. So we're looking for the team to get there nice and quickly. We're looking to them to deny the opposition playing forward or progressing forward, looking to deflect them wide, and then obviously the last one is to win the ball cleanly and attack. So this session, like I said before, we always like to have a little bit of a transition element involved as well. So the white team will start in possession. They'll try and create and finish an attack. And then as soon as the ball turns over and the Reds get possession, then we're looking for a reaction. And then can we win the ball in the transition, or do we have to get organised? And once we get into the kind of the organised state, then we'll look to work a couple of little pressing patterns. So the first pressing pattern, again, like we've talked about before, is we've talked about the 9 and 10 dividing the back 3. In this case, the 9's going to put pressure on and he's always forcing the ball wide. The 10's just come onto the central centre back and will leave the furthest centre back. And we'll ask the number 7 just to divide the space in between the 5 and the 3, just in case it's a bad pass and he can get there and jump. Midfield's obviously locked on man for man, nice and tight if the ball comes into them. And then again, you've got that transition element if you win the ball and you can go and attack. And then the second pattern, obviously from a bit more of a structured start this time, second pattern is that one there. Okay, so we're looking at the number 7. So the 9's gone and pressed from his position in between. 10's coming onto the nearest the central centre half from his position in between. And because the 7's in that dividing position between the 5 and the 3, he's recognised the opportunity to press. Now, when he's gone to press, he's obviously cut off the pass to the 3, which is the mark he's left, and he's forced the ball on the inside. And the reason we do this is if he forces the ball on the inside, as the video plays on, if the number 5 does manage to play the link pass into midfield, all right, then we've got an opportunity for the number 8 to jump onto the link pass out to number 3. And while he's doing that, the 7 can recover onto the inside. So we're still quite structured and still quite sharp, even if they manage to find that pass from their defensive line. So just a couple of ideas in terms of like for the team of how to press. First one from the centre forwards, forcing the ball wide, and then the second one from the wing backs jumping and forcing the ball inside into the midfield. And if they do find that link pass, then we'll be able to get out there and press with the midfield. Anything to add to that, Mikey?
Yeah, I just think, look, you'll see a million sessions like this. You can buy any book now and see the practice, but really go after the detail. The detail's important for any player at any level. I think if you get the detail in right when they're younger, it helps them out when they're older. And then if you're especially working with like senior pros or semi-professionals, or whether it's university or college level, you've just got to make sure that you go after the detail, because everybody does similar presses. You know that it's not rocket science. You see it on TV every day. You can search everywhere. It's about the detail. You can always tell when you're playing against a good coach. You're playing against a well-drilled team. And I think Si mentioned a couple of bits of detail there. When you divide the 3 centre-backs and the ball goes to one side, that initial press is important about locking them in. And then you've got your detail of like when your 10 can jump onto the keeper and things like that. So really go after that sort of stuff, and have a look through our videos, ask us questions. We'll always help you out. We're talking to people from all over the world in some of the messages and trying to help out as many people as we can, because we want everybody to help the next generation of players. So really look at the detail, get the session, and then put the detail in, and then practice it as much as you can.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Mikey. One other thing I will say on this as well is like that. Remember, like in these scenarios, your team is always a lot of the time they're going to have a man less unless you release someone off your defensive line. So I talk to my young players all the time about, look, don't get too frustrated if you do get beat, because when you're building the attack, there is always a way out. There's always a way out against a press, and sometimes like your press won't quite go to plan, or a team's just very good at beating it. And that's obviously when you've got to adapt. But like just that's get into your players' mentality that be intense, be really sharp, get there nice and quickly, but just be aware that look, you can, you've got an underload, you could get beat, and if you do, it's just a case of recovering and trying again. Okay, guys, that time in the presentation again where we find out if our unbeaten streak continues. Just a quick reminder that how we've done this in terms of like how we've worked this in the randomizer. We've got 5 home results, we've got 4 draws, and we've got 5 away results as well. So there's 14 possibilities here that we'll put in the randomizer, and it's been really kind to us so far, hasn't it, Mikey?
Yeah, it's been good, mate. It's been good. I'm still waiting for somebody to set this up on Football Manager and do it that way, and we can like tie it in with a position-specific Football Manager. But this is the only way
we can live it a little bit more. Yeah,
we can give them a training program and everything.
Yeah, exactly. If anyone wants to do it, please let us know. Give it a bash. But here we go. Another hard week's work. Let's see what we've got. So the result against Leeds United is 2-1 win. Mikey, we are flat. We must be top of the league now with 3 wins and a draw.
Right, that Champions League. But thing is, we're going to have to do a Champions League one now, aren't we, if we're finishing that top 3?
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Do you know what I was thinking the other day as well? Is like, this is how much I've been getting into it. I was generally thinking about like, we should have done the results for the should have done fixtures for the other teams in this 10 league team. We should have done the results, and then we should have done the league table. But then I thought to myself, no, you're getting far too carried away.
This is why we need someone out there who's literally a Football Manager geek who can like get it all set up for us. Yeah, if anybody thinks that you want to change it and throw in a couple of losses or anything like that, just let us know. Again, like Si said, we only threw in the randomizer to affect the week. So if we lost, how does that affect our tactics for the next game? Obviously, when we're winning, it's quite an easy ride. So if you do want us to have a look at something different around the results, so you might say that we went down to 10 men or anything like that, or we get beat 3-0, we've had a bit of a drubbing, or we've got 3 players out, just leave the comments below, and then we'll manage it around what you want to see.
Okay, so a brilliant, obviously 2-1 win away at Leeds United after what will have been definitely a tough game. But like looking at the fixtures, I think Mikey mentioned it earlier on in the presentation that we're going to do the Fulham away game in terms of like another 1 week game, and then from then on, so for the rest of the other 5 fixtures, so Brighton, Sheffield United, Newcastle, Man City, and Everton, we'll probably do 2 games a week, just so that it changes the weekly schedule a little bit, and it'll change kind of our approach to loads and intensity and stuff like that. So, so Fulham next away. They've got Chelsea this weekend, I believe. So tough game for them, but I think Fulham's been a really interesting team this year. They've kind of they started off quite poorly, made some changes, obviously improved as well, and then I do think they're going to miss out. I think they're just going to be a little bit too short, but they've had some really good games this year. I know you mentioned them earlier in the presentation, Mikey. You've enjoyed watching them quite a bit, haven't you?
Yeah, I did a bit of a presentation on them for the FA on one of the courses, and I just liked what they were about. I just think they were just a little bit naive with sort of more the defensive transition, if I'm honest. I think everything when it's structured, they're very good. When it was a bit chaotic, they struggled. But I think that sort of comes with experience, and I think with the coaching team, they're very, very good on how they work. I just think that was something they needed to get better at, and obviously they are getting better at it with some of the signings they brought in. But I just think they're a good side to watch. I think they've caused a lot of problems in the Championship last season, and I think when you're starting to look at the quality of the team, they struggled with that. But there has been some really good play this year, and they've been good to watch. So it'd be good to see how we'll go against them. I might even just have a look at that presentation and just deliver that side.
Yeah, you could do, yeah. I mean, going back to Fulham, like one of the best games I've seen this season was Fulham at home to Man City. I think it wasn't too long ago actually. It's probably just over a month ago, I think. But it was just as you said, it was just 2 good teams in terms of when it was structured. So when Man City were playing, Fulham's press was good, which meant Man City had to like find other ways to build and get out. And then it was the same with when Fulham were building, like Man City's press was good, so Fulham had to find different ways and stuff. And Fulham were very good in those moments, but when the press got beat, and then defending after that bit was difficult for them. And then if they beat Man City's press, but then gave the ball away in the second and third line, then again, like Mike mentioned on the transition, they struggled, and ultimately, the defenders weren't as good as what City had, so they ended up losing the game. I think it was 2-0, but it was it was just a really interesting game in terms of high press versus building the attack. So that'd be good. It'd be good to watch them this weekend and see what they've got. Right, guys. Thank you very much for watching the Manager Premier League journey. So Fulham away next week, which will be game number 5 out of 10. So listen, really hope that you're enjoying watching these videos. Me and Mikey are really enjoying putting them together. Although it is quite difficult at the moment with everything going on, finding the time and stuff. But we'll continue to plug away, guys, and it might be late by a couple of days each week, but we'll definitely get there and make sure it gets out. And we've had some amazing comments from you guys over the last few weeks and stuff, and some questions which have been really good as well. So keep those coming in. Make sure you subscribe to our channel, and then when you do that, you'll get a little notification every time we put a new video on. And then if you like the video, make sure you hit the like rating. And as I said, yeah, if any questions or anything, make sure you leave a comment or your messages, and we do read all the comments, and we do get back to every comment as well. So yeah, that's it's really good to interact with you guys. But yeah, Fulham next week. Can't wait, can we, Mikey?
No, bring it on. Again, just to mirror what Si said, thank you again to everybody's support. And yes, we don't have a set date when we bring this out every week, but we have got a lot going on. We're putting these presentations together. We're trying to keep building the website. We've got a couple more books coming out, so make sure you stay tuned with that. And we will be doing giveaways for people who've been engaging and following the journey. But again, just thank you to everybody and the support, and we'll see you next week.